Hello guys, how you doing? Welcome back to another video. This is a new series and this is an introductory video. I'm gonna try to make it as fast as possible. Um, let's dive right into it. What is this series about? So this series is about specifically web development. Actually, you could apply this series to more than just web development, like app development, like mobile app development, or just programs that you want to run on some server somewhere. But we are going to be focusing on setting things up. How can you set up a development environment and a production environment and have them work seamlessly together, like very smooth and very good? So that's what we're going to be focusing on. So what are we using for everything? So obviously we have, just like everything, we have the front end, the back end, and the database. And so for the front end, we're going to be using just JavaScript, HTML, and CSS. So we're going to be using these three. And you might think, well, a lot of people say React is good. The React is very, like, a lot of companies use it. It's good experience to have. Good experience to have. I've personally used React more than enough. And I can confidently say it is a lot better to learn vanilla first, which is just basic JavaScript, HTML, and CSS. And then if you want, you go into React. Now so I did React first, then I did vanilla. And then after I did vanilla, I would not go back to React. Like, I enjoy it a lot more. Now some people don't like, I guess, bare bone or bare metal. But I'm more like that because I don't like a lot of things moving under the hood. I like to know what's going on. Just to make, like, it makes it more reliable. And so that's why I'll be teaching vanilla, just because it's more important to learn at first. And then you guys can learn React on your own, and maybe in the future I do series about React. So this is gonna be our front end. So here we have front end, and we will be using JavaScript, HTML, CSS, and then slowly, while we're using CSS, we're gonna convert into Tailwind. Now Tailwind is very similar to CSS. It just makes CSS development a lot faster. It also saves you on memory and a couple other things that we'll go into when I teach Tailwind. But it's very simple to use, so I hope you don't stress it too much. So that's Tailwind right here, and that's gonna be for the front end as well. Now before people go wild about HTML and CSS, I know they're not languages, they're markup. But I'm not even sure if all these are under the right category. But anyways, so Python, what are we using Python? Python we're using for the backend. So let's do the backend now. So for the backend, we're going to be using the language, which is Python. And the way we're going to be using it is through the library Django. Now Django has a lot of parts moving under the hood, but it's very easy to use. And since it's in Python, I thought it's a good one to use just because a lot of people understand it better. They have more experience with Python. So that's why we're going to be using Python and Django for our backend. Now the backend is not as simple as the front end. There's a lot of moving parts and there's a lot of things you will need. And so first, let's talk about where is our backend running. So we're going to be using AWS EC2 instance. This one is to run our server, and that's an Amazon EC2 instance. And then also on Amazon, we're going to be running our database. I guess I'll do that part with the database section when I do that. But our server is going to be running with Amazon using Django. And so I'm trying to, so I don't mess things up, I'm trying to scratch out what I've already covered. We're going to be also using Git. And if you don't know, GitHub is not a thing. GitHub is just an interface for Git. So you can have Git without GitHub. We are going to be using GitHub though, just because a lot of people use it, a lot of companies use it. It's a good experience to have. And it just makes things a lot easier, going from development to production, doing version control, just accessing your information on any computer. And so we're going to be using Git and GitHub control, Git and GitHub. So we're also going to be using Git and GitHub. I wouldn't say this is as much as the backend. This is more of a developer thing, but yeah. We're also going to be using Docker. That is a backend thing. Is it? I don't think this is also is this a backend thing? I guess it's more backend. So the way Docker works, is this is for scaling. So let's say you have a lot of users and you want to run your project on multiple servers, multiple CPUs, whatever. You're going to need Docker just because it makes scaling a lot easier, a lot better, and a lot faster, and a lot more reliable. And it just, yeah, like it makes your project more reliable. Do you need it? No, you could do the exact same thing without Docker. However, the reason I'm covering it, like, I mean, I know we're not going to be building $1 million website, but it's good to know what you can do. When it comes to web development, the whole idea is you need to have as many tools on hand as you can. You don't need to use all of them, but at least know they exist. Because eventually you're going to run into some problem. You're not going to know how to fix it. You're going to fix it using some whatever research you can find. Or if there isn't, if you can't find much, you're just going to, try to put things together. And it's probably not the most efficient way. And if you just knew something else existed, it would make your life a whole lot easier. So you just want to collect as many ideas as you want. So if you run into something, you're like, oh wait, I know something that's called Docker and it's useful. I don't know how to use it, but I know it could fix this problem. And so that's why we're covering it, just so you know it exists and you know what it does. And so that's Docker. What else are we using for the backend? I guess NPM. NPM is more the front end. I guess a little bit also backend. NPM is basically a library management system for Java. I'm pretty sure it's only JavaScript. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's only JavaScript. Yeah, because it's Node Package Manager. That's what it stands for. And basically, you're going to be using libraries, and you want something to manage them, aka like when you install, delete, and all those things. Or actually, yeah, pretty sure that's the limit of it. But I'm sure NPM does a lot more things. But for now, that's all you need to know is that in order for you to install and delete and manage your libraries and packages, we're going to be using something called NPM. Now, there's alternatives as well for that. There's almost alternatives to everything, but this is a popular one. So that's NPM. Now, what is this library, HTMX? This one is actually a front-end library, so I'll put it here. This one, you can think about it as React, like it's a framework, but it's not a full framework. HTMX, do you need to use it? No. Does it really add a lot of complexity? No. I guess when you use it, like, I'm debating whether I want to explain it now or later, but I think I'll explain it later. HTMX, here, I'll give you a brief example, actually. So let's say you have your HTML, this is your page, and you want to, like, take this little piece in your page, like, let's say, like, this is a profile picture, or some table, let's say, or whatever you have, and you want to go to the back end, take this little piece, and replace it with something else from the back end. So HTMX will make it a lot easier to communicate with the back end and replace little pieces in your HTML. That's all it does. And so it just makes development a lot easier and nicer to work with. We're going to be doing without and with. So you just have both ends of the stick. Also for the backend, we need two things, Nginx and gUnicorn. Nginx and gUnicorn. Now, what are these two things? Nginx is your proxy. So let's say you're running a call center and you have a lot of phone numbers and you have only one exposed phone number that people call, and then you have something like Nginx that tells where these calls go to. When a phone is already on call with someone else, it's not going to send the signal there. When a phone is off, it's not going to send the signal there. And so it's a manager. It manages the requests and the connections that come in, and it tells it where to go. However, what is gUnicorn for? Django cannot communicate with Nginx, and so gUnicorn is like a translator. It will take your Django, translate it, and communicate it to Nginx, so you can serve it to all your requests that come in your connections. You like serve your project to the web. That's what gUnicorn does, and that's about it. For database is a pretty simple one. Database, and for database, we're going to be using Postgres. There's also, again, It's not Post. Is it with a T? Postgres? I'm not sure. I think it's actually not without a T. Postgres. SQL. This one, we're also going to be using SQL, the language. Now, we're not going to use it extensively. We are just going to be doing the basics of how to use it. But we're going to be writing most of our Python to do some functionality on our database. We're not going to be writing raw SQL. But we will be like covering it like basics, just so you know how to navigate your database. And also we are going to be using, what was the other thing for backend? Oh, AWS RDS. So with Amazon, this is what it's called, AWS RDS, and that's where we're going to be running our database. And that's about it. So this is the intro. The level of, so how much am I covering? To what extent will I be covering? I'm going to be going through database, front end, back end. I'm going to be going through security, handling tokens, handling sessions. I'm going to be going through like how to make a basic login functionality. I'm going to also be going over certificates for your server. So you get, HTTPS communication between you and the client. Now, if this sounds all about too much, when I start into the series and you see how things connect together, it's not going to be as overwhelming. They kind of it's like puzzle pieces and they really coordinate well. So it's not going to be too bad. I'm also going to be obviously going through on how to set up a development environment, how to set up a production environment, how to go from development to production, how to do testing. The one thing that I really want to do, but I don't think I'm going to do, is CI/CD pipelines. But I guess hopefully in a future video, or maybe as I'm doing this series, I'll include it. But that's about it on what I'm going to be covering. So I hope you guys will learn something. I hope it's going to be helpful. And if you guys have any recommendations or anything you want me to cover, please do write it down in the comment below. And I will definitely read it and try my best to include it. And so that's about it. I'll see you guys in the next video.